Welcome to another tutorial on using Worldographer. This time we're going to basically be tracing a map to make a battle mat. So this is a tutorial going over making a battle mat as well as tracing an underlay. Let me talk about setting up the underlay, which I did previous to starting the video just because it kind of gets a little bit tedious figuring out the exact sizes to use. But I took a map of the village of Hamlet's Moat house and resized it using these controls over here. I did have to rotate the original a little bit. That's not something that Worldographer will do for you because the scan was just ever so slightly off by like half a degree. You can also probably get by without that. You kind of just be fudging the walls a little bit if you want to. But the important thing to set up an underlay, first you would go up here to File and then say New Battle Mat, Dungeon Map, and then set the number of squares that you want for your map. And then you come here and this is a file chooser at first until you pick a file. And you find that file that you downloaded or scanned on your computer. And then you set up the top left, top right, top left corner and the image width and image height, and you're kind of just eyeballing it. You know, it might be, you know, this, if I pick, originally it was 40, say, I might say, well, that's too big, and I need to reduce it down until I get something where these are all lining up, all the lines are roughly lining up, and here I can do the same thing on the width. And if the corner of the map isn't a perfect square point, I can also shift things a portion of a tile in order to get things to line up. So that's that part. So now let's get into the good part. And for this, what I tend to do now with creating maps is to use polygons, use shapes. To create the various rooms. You could also go to terrain and you can filter this by the floor types, and you can find different floor tiles, particularly these in here, I think, for a dungeon, and place them down. You know, click the one you want and place where you want it to go. But again, I tend to go with shapes now because this allows me to do the angled corridors and cavern rooms and so forth. So to do this, nowadays I'm going with a pretty wide wall of 20%, 22% in this case, of a particular of a square. That number there is the percentage of a square. And then I'll go in, and I think, if I remember right, I'm using a dark rock kind of border stroke for the polygons. And then the fill, I pick a texture that I think will look good. And let's say I want to go with light cobblestone for the sake of argument. The other thing that I need to make sure I check is that in this case, I want to snap my points to the grid. And that just means that it's going to try to find a spot on a corner of each square, or a quarter of the way across, halfway across, and 3/4 of the way across to fill that in. So once I've got those things set, I've got polygon selected here, I pick the corner, and you can see where I am making this room. And it looks like I didn't quite get that in the right spot. So we can go there. I'm gonna actually make this a little bit larger, which just makes sure that I get a good spot, good location for where I click my points. Also, I notice that this room, if I look really closely, I can see that the corners are kind of rounded, which I don't want. I'm going to go for a miter, which just squares them off because that's more appropriate. And then I'll deselect so I can start the next polygon here, and I can then click the points for this room here. Now, as I'm drawing that, I can see that the map underneath is disappearing, and that's happening rather quickly, and I don't want that to happen quite so quickly. So I go here, up, to the trace underlay again, and I'm going to set this so that my opacity of my main map is only half and half, so I can still kind of see through and see the bottom of that map. Let me go back to the shapes now. Let's do another one, and in this case we'll do the main room, if you will, and get this. Actually, I'm going to come out and do this area like this so that we can more easily have that open doorway down there. In fact, maybe let's come out like this to here and do another point there. And deselect that. So we can start another one. And so here, now we need to do this again for this room here. Deselect. Now, to do this here, I'm just going to make it a line, and I'm going to make two lines, one from here to there. Deselect, and one from here to there. Deselect. And then I'm going to make, go back to my polygons, and make my small rooms here. Oop. Actually, let's select that back. I didn't see, wasn't watching closely. There we go. So it's a pretty easy process here of just tracing over these. Now, we got a bunch of things we can fill in. Let's go to our features drawer. Let's filter this so it's a little bit easier. We're going to filter for door because we got a bunch of doors to fill in here. And if you mouse over any of these, you'll get the name of the thing that it is. And so I'm going to pick this here, and I know I've got the door here, and I'm going to need to resize this because I want that to be wider to kind of cover up the wall that's there. I was being quick with my walls. You could also do this by just filling in the polygon for the floor, then doing separate polygons for lines for the walls, and then leave an opening for where you want the doors. This is a little bit faster, so I'm going to go into trace underlay again. I'm going to set this back to 100 so I can see where my my doors are and so forth a little bit more clearly. I can even zoom in, and so you can see here we've got this door. It's not the entire height of that particular wall, so I'm going to go ahead and scale this and make it, I'm just going to play around with the setting. Now this particular graphic was kind of done from the old Dungeonographer and so forth, so it's actually got a lot of invisible padding, if you will, on it, which is why this is supposed to be 100, based on the size of a tile, the width and the height of a tile, that's what this is supposed to be, and obviously that's not 80% of a tile. That's because the original graphic just has some extra transparency to it. So if I'm just kind of trying to guess at what is a good number that matches up with that height of that wall, and I think that this 75 is, yeah, so that 75 works for me. And so now I can select this again. Let's go back down to our trace underlay so we remember where all of those doors are, and go back into our features, I should say here. And what you can see is most of my remaining doors for this area look like they are vertical. So I'm going to need to do this rotate. So I'm going to rotate them all by 90 degrees as I'm placing these additional ones. And these right now are set to snap to the, again, the center of a tile, or halfway across, or a quarter of the way across, or 3/4 of the way across, because place freely is not checked. If we check place freely, then that would not be the case, and it would be, the center would be exactly where you click. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 here. And if I scroll up a little bit more, I know I had another one here. Oops. Let's undo that and do a new one in the right spot. So we've got that. And I mean, really, we could drop down all of our doors now if we wanted to. So I can drop in that one. Let me put this back out at 60 again, just so we can see more of the map area and find any more doors that need to be dropped into place. One here, one there, and one here. I'm just doing the vertical ones right now. I'll do the horizontal ones in a moment. So that looks like all that we need for that. So now let's go to 0. And let's find our horizontal doors that we might need. This one being one of them. There's another one. There's another one. All right, and if we missed any others, we can come back to them. Stairs. So if we go back here and we filter by stairs, we've got several stairs that we can choose between. This probably makes the most sense. I am going to not scale it. We're just going to put it in place. We've got no rotation, so that should be fine. And we're going to want to select that though so that we can kind of play around with the width anyway. The width, we can scale this to say 80%, just ballparking, and we want to override this so that the height is still 200%, say. Maybe this needs to be 190, and maybe this needs to be more like 70. Maybe we do need place freely on so that we can get this exactly where we want it to be. Actually, you know, I'm going to take a slight liberty with the map, and I'm going to say that this is taking up the entire width of this particular thing. Turn place freely back off. And then we might want to be putting in another wall. So if we go back here to shapes, and we go to a line, we can get 1, 2, 3, 4. No fill for this line. Right. So no fill for that line. And let's set the opacity back just so we can see how it looks for those stairs there. And that looks pretty good. Go back to 50. And we can fill in some of these other things here. So we've got, if we go back to the features, we've got some rubble. So we can throw in some rubble here. And we don't want to, let's see. So, I mean, I can pick a couple of different types of rubble so it looks a little bit more random looking. Too close to the wall there because place freely is not on. Okay. Alright, anyway, and then we've also got some columns. So we've got column here, and we've got them set up in 2 different ways. They both have a slight angle so that they can kind of, you know, be seen a little bit better. I'm just going to arbitrarily pick this one. And I don't know if I should turn them or not. Let's see how it looks just by itself. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I wanted to, I could click one and rotate it to make it look a little bit better. Let's get back to drawing our rooms. So we got shapes, and we've got here, and so I can let me double check that we got place freely on. Got when I have a fill, rather snap points to grid is on rather, and click these points for this room. Click the points for another room. Oh, more pillars. I could have picked the pillars at that time. Well, we'll come back to it. Then we've got, let's just work on the rest of our rooms here. Don't know what I'm going to do for this tiny stairway. We do have built into the program a circular stair type thing, or a square circular stair, but it is not probably not going to have a close fidelity, if you will, to that particular odd shaped stairway. I don't know. So now I'm just making a large shape with all these rooms because there isn't really any doorway, and I'm just clicking the points, and you can see that it's kind of going off. You know, the fill area is going well outside of what is the fill area for the map, but that's okay because once we start clicking down, it will come into play. There we go. Wow, this is just going to be one huge room, but that kind of makes things easy for this tutorial's purposes, that I can probably make this just pretty quick for everybody. Now if you click something wrong, you can just control drag to move that point if it doesn't go into the right spot for you. And almost there. And again, this particular method of drawing allows us to do these odd-shaped corridors, which is good. You know, with the tiles approach, you're not going to be able to do those angled corridors or these diamond-shaped rooms and so forth. All right, let's fill in some more of these details here, or I should say, fill in some of these small rooms. So we got those two done. That's a whole new section, so let's make sure. Okay, so really just comes down to those new sections. All right, let's finish off. Okay, that's all done. So I think I'm doing this next. So here we go. And, you know, so, I mean, this is kind of going to be good. This is going to be the entire map in one video, and you can see how long it takes me to do it, which should give you an idea of how easy is the tool to use. If I'm able to essentially finish off the entire map in one video, that's kind of the goal. If you guys can see, oh, now I didn't, but I think I can do that. Yes, so that's a way also that I can still have one, I can make this separate room look separate, but it's still part of the same polygon because I kind of just went about my way and filled all this in, or created this secondary room without stopping, and I probably should have if I wanted to make it separate, but I was able to just click back up to make the line to go back up there. And again, control drag a point allows you to move that back to move a point. And here I guess I will stop there for that. Oh, okay. Well, looks like we're going to have to do something creative there to make that work. And now we're going to be getting into this area too. There's quite a bit going on here. Quite a bit of things going on in this tutorial that I wasn't planning for, but hey, you guys get the benefit of seeing how it all works. So now I'm going to take a little bit of liberty with these small areas here. This is would be kind of challenging to do all freehand or whatever quickly, so I'm just going to, you know, these are not necessarily going to match up with the original dimensions, if you will, just so I can play around with this a little bit. We might be going back and revising a few of these points once we see how it turns out. Now I believe this is sealed off back here, this particular crypt, if you will, but if we need to, we could actually go over that wall with another polygon of just the pebble texture that we chose as the fill for this in order to pull off that effect. So if we need to, we can do that. We'll see. So I think by far this is probably the most tedious part of the whole tutorial, is making these little rooms, but I mean, you're going to have that no matter what you do. You're going to have some tedious parts. And it's a secret door, so we don't need to worry about that for the purposes of a battle map. Don't want to tell everybody where the secret doors are. But that does get into the fog of war functionality that we have built into the tool. We've got a separate video that just goes over that specifically, but it's one of the other drawers on the sidebar there, and you can use that to kind of hide the entire map and then reveal it section by section by highlighting an area and going over it, or revealing area by area. So here we are. That covers all of that. And then we have this out area, so let me deselect, pick a new. Actually, let's delete that, because we can do this as a line that is just has an opening on that one end. It's got a fill. So our lines can have fills to them, and so that's a line with that fill. And we've got that. So now that we've got all this, you know, I can see that a couple of these, or at least one of these, is way too small. So two of them are way too small. So let's see if we can do anything about that. Let's go down to the trace underlay though, so we can get a better view of what we've got. I'm going to make this 80% so we can still faintly see what's underneath there. And let's see what we can do to kind of give each of these crypts a little bit of width to it. So let's go to shapes again. let's select. Once you hit select, it highlights all the points in gray. Let's show that again. So all the points are highlighted in gray, and it's easiest to select a shape by clicking on one of the points. So we've got that. Here, obviously, the easiest way for me to give this a little bit of width for this one is to just do that. For this one, it's looking to be a little bit more complicated. I almost want to just go back with this one to widen. And that's not going to be exact fidelity with what the original is, but I think it gets across the intent. Same thing here. I'm going to move this one slightly, and that might not be exactly where that was in the original, but it's close enough. So we've got all of that going on. Let's see, so we have a couple of stairs to add and a couple of pillars up there. But I think the more interesting, and I'll probably just drop those in after the video. You can tell that they won't be long, but they won't be educational for anybody watching the video who's already seen that happen. Let me just stick to the things that would be useful for you to know. So here, looks like we've got some kind of pool of liquid down there, so we can go to the, actually stay on the shapes. Pick a different shape. So I can hit polygon, actually, and pick a different color, I should say. I don't want any border to this. I just want it to be the fill, and I want it to be a color, and I want that color to be, I realize this goes off screen a little bit for you guys, I'll pull it, but on the bottom of this color widget is a custom color option. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to move this over. So this control I can move over here. And I can pick over here, and I can then, I can drag this thing around, and I can pick a color blue that I want for my thing. Now, if this, I don't remember off the top of my head what was in area 30. So if it's a different type of liquid that would be a different color, well, you can set it to whatever. And I can also, though, change the opacity so you can see through it a little bit. So I'm going to use this. Now, if I hit save, it's just going to put that on my color widget tool, but that doesn't matter. I'm only using it once. So hit use. You can see that the colors changed to this. And I want now to not snap the points because I do want to have kind of a more natural looking pool here. So I do that, and then once I deselect it, so all the points are showing up there in that darker color. So if I deselect, then now you can see roughly there. And if you wanted to go over, I could delete that and go over it again if I wanted it to be more exact. But being on the spot doing a video, that's close enough. Talking about other things that we can do here. So we've got this secret passage here, and if I want to mark that, I personally, for the purposes of a Battlemat, wouldn't want to show it in this area. I'm going to leave that to the DM to realize that it's leading into that particular room, and that the pillar would be the natural location for it to finish. But I can go to here to shapes, and I can go to line, and I can play with my line type. And I can do a dotted line or a dashed line, whichever I wanted to do. For the sake of argument, I'll say it's dashed. I'll give it a width of, say, 15, and we'll give it the color, and I'm going to give it a gray, because maybe we'd fill in the area black, or maybe we'll leave it white. So either way, with the gray color, it'll show up to a degree. I'm going to turn on again the snap the points, and I can pick one. Oh, no, did I not select the, no, got it there. Okay, so yeah, you can see that there. I don't want to fill. Turn off the fill. And then I can come, let's deselect it and do a second line for the other, whoop, deselect it, and then click our other line. So that's our secret passage indicator. In hindsight, maybe the dotted line would be better, closer. Actually, I think I want to make that a little bit wider looking, just because of the width of the line that I chose. It's kind of tiny, so let's select this and let's pull it up. There you go. So we got that. Now the last big thing would be to do these caverns, and I'll get it started. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense if you guys want to see me draw all of these lines, but let's go. We're going to do this as a shape. We're going to do a wall of texture of, we can do we can stick with the rock dark, but we can do a texture that is more like a rough stone light, I think might be what I want, but we can change it if it turns out not to be what we want. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the snap, because obviously we want something very haphazard looking, something that doesn't go in straight lines. And I'm going to pick starting here, and I'm going to just be kind of clicking these points around. You could also just clicking and dragging. Now you can see that that's a dashed line. I forgot to change this, so we just go back to simple. And oh yeah, this is polygon, and I didn't set the texture to fill in. Okay, so yeah, so that is what I wanted. The other thing to do, and so it's kind of good. It's not going to deselect this when I switch to the trace, but just so I can better see the map as we're going along. So maybe I'll have to edit this and speed this section up or jump to the end, because obviously there's not a lot to get out of this. Alright, and we're back. So what I did in the interim here was just to fill in all of the rest of these cavern passageways. I did go back over for this fill-in area and created a second polygon and a third here and so forth to just cover up the areas that were supposed to be areas that are filled in that you can't travel with a new polygon. And I set those to fill in as white for printing purposes. You could also set them to fill in as black if you'd prefer for screen purposes. It's up to you. And then I also did shift these columns to kind of have the perspective as if you're in the room. So the ones towards the top left here kind of slants away and so forth. And I filled in these pillars. That was something that we hadn't done yet. And I've put in a couple of extra stairs. But otherwise, I think that we're done. I think that gives you a good idea of what the tool can do. Let me just turn off the underlay or set it completely to 100 so you can see what the map looks like without anything else distracting from underneath. So again, this is how to use Worldographer to make a Battlemat. I can also trim the map. If you have the Pro version, you can go up to Tools and expand Shrink Columns, because initially we set it to be 50 hexes wide, I think, or 50 tiles wide, I should say. And so you want to shrink those off because we didn't go and do the entire width, so you'd want to shrink off these last 8 or 10, however many there are there. But yeah, so I'm going to post this to the Worldographer samples page so you guys could download it if you want to use it. And again, it's mostly though to show you how to make your own map, especially using shapes to make your rooms. So again, I'm Joe Weitzel. Thank you very much.